If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to Mindshock True Crime. This is your host, Bruce McGuire, and you are listening to the Maura Murray series. This is episode 83, The Auto Shop Gang. And this is probably going to be the first episode that attempts to conclusively tie everything together between the UMass area and the Haverhill area, something that many have attempted, but few have been able to find definitive links. And this is going to really be the summation of all the research done by many different investigators, online researchers, and people following the case, of which there are many, many astute researchers out there. They get overshadowed by all the trolls, the goofs, and the obfuscators, but there's plenty of good, solid, intelligent, logical researchers out there, and I am going to attempt to present their work all together in what might be the definitive episode in the Maura Murray case series here. And this is, I've been talking about this for a few dozen episodes now, that there's just so much more to go over. After this episode, there might only be a couple more episodes, because we are getting to the point. Mindshock is, of course, comprehensive and exhaustive in every fashion. And if you look at other cases that we cover, I mean, there's usually only a couple episodes, sometimes only one or two episodes for many cases, because that's really all there is. In the Maura Murray case, it's just so unique. This is episode 83 for a reason, because there's just that much to go over in this case. PSYOP or not, regardless of whatever theory actually happened, the amount of information to go over in this case is unlike any other. And we will continue to do so. There's gonna be a few more episodes, because there's a couple of tertiary issues that do need to be covered, but I've said this so many times before, we better not be able to get to episode 100 before this case is solved, and I actually don't think we will. I as of right now, I believe there's only a few more episodes gonna be left in the Mindshock series, unless brand new information comes out, or confessions come out, or whatever. So, hold on to your hats, make sure you have a comfortable seat, and you have your thinking cap on, because this episode is not for coincidence theorists. The Dunning-Kruger crowd, if you don't want to get triggered, this episode is not for you. As always, if you want to help support the Mindshock podcast, help us get more mind-shocking content out there, and keep up awareness in missing persons cases, cold cases, and unsolved crimes of all kinds, as well as wrongful convictions, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You could also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Support the channel that way for access to exclusive streams and chats. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcast, or requests. You could also be a guest in the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comments section. So, before we get to this auto gang and connect all the dots here for the first time ever, I don't believe any podcast or any piece of media out there has been able to connect all the dots, but this is what we are attempting to do. Before we do that, I do want to address that there is a vehicle in the ATM footage. Now, regarding the ATM stills, let's put aside for a moment, obviously some people believe it's all fake. Other people believe the footage is indeed real, but it is not from February 9th. It is from the day before, or a few days before, or maybe even a week or two before. But it is curious that there's a vehicle here that does not appear to be the Saturn. So, if there's snow on the ground, so some people say the ATM footage inverts the colors. But does it really? Because if there's snow on the ground, the snow is white, and it looks white. We have photos of Maura Murray wearing a similar jacket to what she's allegedly wearing in the ATM footage, and it is white in the ATM footage, and it is white in the color photos. So I don't know what to make of this theoretical inversion. Some people are stating that white looks like black and black looks like white, but we're not really seeing that here. And I mean, even look at the trees in the background. I mean, trees are brown. This is not rocket science. I mean, I know there's a lot of, the Dunning-Kruger crowd is really attracted to the Maura Murray case, but I mean, come on. Trees are brown, dark brown, medium brown, and they appear quite dark in the footage here again. So I haven't been to this particular ATM on the inside, so I don't know the exact colors here, but the ceiling here looks white. The walls look relatively dark. I don't know if that would be gray or whatever. Possibly a blue, dark blue color, but whatever. So, but white looks white. So this vehicle out here, it would not be black. It would be white, and it looks white. And then on the inside, it does not appear to be white leather or white seats. They appear to be dark seats. So brown, gray, or black on the inside of the vehicle, just like the dash, it appears to be dark. And the rear bumper also, I mean, I don't know what that is. Maybe that's something else. Obviously, this is not good quality. But just in the interest, again, of examining everything, whose vehicle is that? Now, some people are stating that would not be her vehicle. So her vehicle will be parked elsewhere. So someone posted this. I don't know who. Whoever wants credit can take it. I mean, these are just aerials from different maps. If you look at the aerial over the ATM, there wouldn't really be a car there unless it's for the person in the... I mean, there's just no reason for anybody else to park there. So either she's by herself or she's with someone else, but that's not the Saturn. So if she's with another individual, are they the driver waiting in the car for her? Because we can't see the driver. Now, the passenger seat, we can kind of sort of see a little bit. If the person is like really slid down and sleeping, I guess you wouldn't see them. But there does not appear to be a person in the passenger. Again, it's really hard to make out. But if there's a person in the driver's seat, clearly we would not be able to see them. So is Maura with someone else, in which case she would not be the driver? And yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point there. I don't know how to get around that point. Now, of course, again, in other ATM stills, it appears that the car is not there. So, again, if this is heavily edited, what would be the motive? Did they edit out a vehicle? So some people say the footage is really, really fishy, and then also the reason they didn't release all the stills. Is it possible someone really just stopped randomly right there by the ATM? But if they're going to wait to use the ATM, I mean, wouldn't they wait for Maura to leave? I mean, why would they just leave? I guess it's a theoretical possibility that someone did pull up, noticed the ATM was in use, didn't feel like waiting, and pulled away. Is that a possibility? And then the vehicle's not associated with Maura Murray. I mean, anything's possible. Or is this footage just heavily manipulated? I mean, the only real way you would know is, of course, getting the raw, original, unedited footage with all of the frames. I mean, only a few frames were released. What's on all the other frames? And was there a vehicle specifically deleted from this ATM footage, which opens up another can of worms and why all the manipulation? If you haven't checked out the previous Mindshock episode, specifically dealing with the shadiness of the Oxygen show and the gaslighting that was unleashed through the Oxygen show, clearly agenda-driven to, again, as Art Roderick openly stated, he didn't deny it, it's just to put the police conspiracy theory to bed. It's not to find the truth. It's not to expose police officers if they're complicit and responsible. It's to shut down the theory, regardless of truth. It's to put that theory to bed. That was the goal of the Oxygen series, according to Art Roderick, who I believe also produced the series. Or whatever, it's affiliated somehow in the production, this former U.S. Marshal. So, yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, we don't even know who was the individual in the possibly reenacted liquor store footage. And the answers we got from all these different people, the actress that played Maura Murray, in an email correspondence, she stated that she did do a reenactment, but that's not her footage. And other people postulated that they reenacted it with Maggie Freeling as well, But that does not appear to be who's in the footage either. And it doesn't quite look like Maura Murray either. So who the heck is in the footage, in the reenacted liquor store footage for the Oxygen show that was only shown in a quick preview and not actually they actually didn't really even cover that. Why was that all deleted? I think a lot of answers do lie in the I don't know, Maggie, what did Maggie say? They had like 6 extra hours or something like that, or even more of footage and material that never aired. A lot of the answers might lie in that material because who knows? I postulated the theory that Maggie was just being used as a useful idiot. She's not actually complicit in anything. And she was being honest. And she was trying to find the truth. But she was just being hoodwinked by all sides. By Art Roderick and all these other gaslighters, so to speak. So she was just hoodwinked to the point where she really believes everything she's saying. And there was no conspiracy and all of that. So she was just manipulated into this. Which, of course, that's how most conspiracies are carried out. There's very few people in the know. Coincidence theorists are just really ignorant of how conspiracies actually work. And so then they use all these strawman arguments. Obviously quite silly. So let's move on to... Here is yet another mind shock. I don't know how this info has been under wraps for so long. But Repulsive Wallaby 874 on various Maura Murray subreddits. I mean, this poster is a leading researcher here. I mean, they are really pushing a lot of ideas and a lot of information. So a lot of credit goes out to Repulsive Wallaby here. Basically, they copy-pasted this post here. Supposedly, this is the second individual who has stated that there was someone else actually in the ATM with her. Here's the post here. I get it when I asked on the private board why not release, he says there was another customer in the ATM booth at the same time, but he was a stranger and not with her or anything. So why not just blur his face out, and ATM cameras only pick up a close range of the custard? Maybe that's supposed to be customer. And what's behind them, so his full body wouldn't even be shown, right? I don't get why they only show the couple frames that just have Miss Murray. Why not show all the frames, but just blur out the stranger who didn't have anything to do with anything? Why? And why had the person who was in the M at the same time as Miss Murray talk to the news? Did the police even contact him? Had not the person who was in the same... I don't know what's going on with this English here. Does that mean they didn't talk to the news, or they did? Did the police even contact him? If I was behind someone in line at the ATM who was later missing, you bet your bottom dollar I would go to every news leader and tell them so I can help give a better description of her or him. Well, yeah, because that might have been the last person to have seen her. Dear police, if you are reading this, I think it would be really good to release. That way people know the clothes she was wearing. What if she is still out there and still had the same shirt or something, and someone saw her and thought that looks like her but can't be? Oh, she is wearing the same shirt in the ATM video. I'm actually going to report this. Or what if people came across clothes off one of the trails or something? God, I hope that isn't the case. But if I see clothes when walking the dog, like a shirt or shorts, I think a hiker might have not zipped his backpack all the way up and it fell out. But if I recognized a short or pants, see what I'm getting at? I've been reading the blog and I want to help. You've seen her poor dad. He wants answers. Why are police being so hard on him and everyone else who wants to help? Please, people, write letters to the police. If they get enough, maybe they will do more. Or even write Trump or Congress or New Hampshire rep. Maybe they can help. How can we help? Yeah, I don't know how old this comment is. Maybe it's a few years old. But people are stating that MJA investigations constantly use the term Miss Murray, whereas most people just say Maura or Maura Murray. So apparently MJA investigations are known for saying Miss Murray. What's interesting, MJA investigations on Twitter stated this December 4th, 2021. MJA investigations preaches about ethics of all types. We were banned for life on web sleuths and Reddit. We were posting true crime and they called it promotional. Some of the cases we didn't even work on, but knew the case needed some type of coverage. weird. So I don't know if there's some kind of allegations that they were onto something. A post about him by Unable Strain. Mark seemed like a genuinely nice person. He let me call him once after an online discussion about potential suspects and was more than happy to talk and share information. I am not sure if he's on Reddit, and he may have been referring to a private Facebook group. I know he was active on one when I was still on there. Maybe some people are here too. Okay. Some more posts here. It was kind of odd how they presented the pics to the family on the Oxygen show. Fred was denied the images in 2006 when he sued the state. But Maggie Freeling busts out her laptop, and lo and behold, a couple of blurry ATM pics of Maura from 2004 that weren't allowed to be seen until then. If I were the dad here, I would have demanded to know how Oxygen got them to be shown. Fred had spent money to get refused years ago, but curiously nothing. Another post here. Fred's reaction to events don't make sense. I would be livid if I was him that the ATM images were shown decades later and would be useless, but used on TV for more drama. He also had no reactions that we know of to Billy Roush's multiple sexual allegations or Scott Wall's alleged allegations. Makes you wonder. Those are good points. He flipped out about Maggie asking about his own allegations, but has been quiet on all the other issues. Scott Wall sitting at CrimeCon with Julie, all the allegations on Bill Roush, then Oxygen flaunting info about Maura's case that he couldn't get in court. It does seem very strange. I have no responses here because this is all highly bizarre. This is one of the most bizarre cases ever. I mean, almost none of the people in this case, nobody really makes any sense here. No matter where you look, from Maura's supervisors at the security desk, from that alleged meltdown, which might have been made up, she might have been fired at the security desk the Thursday night, from the supposed accident, the Hadley accident, all the different parties, if you haven't checked out the previous episode on the other party, where Maura was even staying, whether it was the Phillip Street address like other members on the track team, who apparently was also one of her last known phone calls, which nobody ever talks about, and these people who also have connections to Kiln Road in Haverhill specifically. And then the latest bombshell that I went over on the previous episode, apparently one of the Haverhill police officers has a family member at UMass at that time. Now, again, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it's just kind of weird, because there's only a couple of police officers in this hamlet in the middle of nowhere. I don't know. It's really weird. Another solid post here from an astute researcher. Many people do not know that there isn't one image of Maura and the Saturn together on February 9th. It's a very important point to the story, yet nothing exists. This cold case is full of assumptions. And that's also a good point. Unless there's, toll booth footage of Maura driving in the Saturn, in which case they should have released it if it exists. Supposedly, there's also footage from a bank next to the Butson's store that Maura allegedly stopped with, and that Butson's clerk was the one way back when, I think this was originally reported on Renner's blog, that she saw Maura come in with two other girls, and she could have sworn it was Maura. And there was no security footage in the Butsons, but supposedly there was a bank next to it where you could see them. And supposedly, it's really hard to find information on that. Supposedly that footage does exist. Some people allege that Fred might have even seen it, but if it's really far, would you be able to make out that it was Maura? You might be able to make out the jacket, though, if it was the exact same jacket. But you might also be able to make out if, I don't know how much of that it shows. Does it show where the car was parked if it was the Saturn? There's a lot of unanswered questions, but the point is none of this has ever been released. So if there's gas station footage, the actual liquor store footage, none of it has ever been released. So yeah, anybody placing Maura with the Saturn is, of course, assuming, because UMass, of course, has security footage of their parking lots and public main hall areas in the residential halls and on campus. They've never released anything either. So for all we know, the Saturn was already off campus for at least a week. Maybe that's why she was driving Fred's car, because the Saturn wasn't even there. So who knows how long the Saturn was no longer in the UMass area? All of it is assumptions. Another post here, the ATM is the only proof that it was Maura Murray on February 9th. If that ATM is doctored or found to be only used for TV drama and from another date, then the whole February 9th story falls apart. Atwood did not know Maura Murray and didn't ask who she was. If we don't have the ATM, then all we have is Fred Murray dropping her off on Sunday at UMass as the last verified sighting. I wonder if UMass ever asked Bill Rausch if when he visited at UMass how he got into the dorms or if he had a key to her room. Another response here, Erin Larkin had mentioned when she was doing security at the same time as Maura that many used to sneak in back dorms and avoided the security desk altogether. Also, many would slip by during off-security hours when another swiped the doors. Security was done by midnight during the week, then 2 a.m. on weekends. After that, it's game on. With tricks, I'd imagine, to find ways to sneak into the dorms. Those are all excellent points. Those are all very excellent points. And there's yet more here. I bet there were multiple cameras in that parking lot. I'm assuming they're talking about the ATM here, because there were other businesses there. If there was or was not a Saturn, damaged or not, is the question. If it was damaged, then I believe this would tip off the public that everything started at UMass. That's a great point, because if the damage is all there by the ATM, if she's even using the Saturn there and it's in that parking lot, if it looks identical to the way that it looks post Haverhill, what does that mean? Another post, right, I think it's also possible other footage could show Maura getting into another car as a passenger. There's an early article that states Maura withdrew cash from an ATM at 3:40 p.m. Interesting, as the timestamp on the footage shows 3:15 p.m. Perhaps she was being driven around to multiple ATMs by someone that day. Also, other early articles say Maura stopped at a liquor store that same afternoon, but it doesn't mean she actually went in and purchased anything. She could have just as easily given someone cash and they bought the items. Yeah, the receipt in no way proves who bought the items. I mean, that's something the Dunning-Kruger crowd, they maintain that receipt proves Maura took the items and it proves Maura made it to Haverhill. I mean, this is kindergarten level stuff, but they're supposedly functioning adults that they just don't get it. A few more posts here rounding out some of the earlier theories. Maybe it was a Saturn hooked up to a tow truck. Obviously, they wouldn't want to release that footage, because then, I mean, what does that mean? Good point. How did the Saturn make it all the way to New Hampshire if it was supposedly running so poorly? I've wondered before, could the rag in the tailpipe have been there because it was being towed? Regardless, I've always thought Fred spit out his rag in the tailpipe story because he was trying to walk back his old squaw comment. And even though suicide by car, or whatever you'd call it, wasn't going to happen from putting a rag in the tailpipe, there was still mention of, like, well, maybe that's why it was there. Other post, I agree, Fred may have unintentionally steered some clues, like the rag in the tailpipe and the man smoking a cigarette in other directions away from what really happened. In this case, I wouldn't think the Weathern Barn corner was the intended place to stage a car, but rather it was where the car came loose from the tow or something else similar and had to be ditched there. I agree, and like other users believe, the plan may have been to ditch the Saturn at a ski resort, where it may not have been found until springtime. So either ski resort or even in the White Mountains somewhere off-road where it wouldn't be found for a long time. The coincidence theorists and the Dunning-Kruger crowd, they're so clueless, they hallucinate that either if it was staged, it had to have been staged in that spot on purpose. There's no such thing as Murphy's Law. People never make mistakes. Things never go off plan. So these goofs hallucinate that the evidence that it wasn't staged is because nobody would want to stage it there. As if there could never have been a plan to stage it somewhere else, like a parking lot where it wouldn't be found for a long time, or even somewhere in the deep White Mountains roll it down a ditch somewhere way off road where nobody would find it for a long time. Those are good places, but if they couldn't make it there in front of all those neighbors, they panicked, got in the red truck, and got out of there because they couldn't or didn't want to take the time to hook it up, or maybe if they were afraid the cops were on the way, whatever, they would have just left it there. So, yeah, I mean, it's really weird how all these goofs don't understand that not everything always goes according to plan. I mean, it's just weird. But, or they're just intentional steerers and they know full well that could have been what happened, but they're intentionally steering, so they have to pretend and play stupid in order to avoid confronting that very, very basic concept. So, let's move on to the major mind shocks here. Okay, so let's get to these connections. Repulsive Wallaby also has this post from 2 months ago. Went through some of the old topics posts from the locals again. Was the first screenshot possibly referring to Concrete Guy? The statement in the second screenshot is just weird. Either complete BS or the person in the second screenshot heard what happened to Maura. What earlier post are they referring to? So here's the first screenshot here. I was told tonight S.E. was killed by a father and son team. A name that came up was Richard when they asked someone about what happened to her. She has an uncle named Richard, and his son's name is Richard, but I believe they are from Massachusetts. Okay, all you non-believers, I will not even comment on the comments you made about Dick Tracy, as you're idiots and know nothing about the Justice Department, okay? So I am not going to waste my time defending myself, ha ha ha, the nerve of some idiots in this room. The ones commenting about the name, I am sure you might be the murderers, or you too know the information that you're keeping secret, right? Well, if anyone knows a Richard that she might have known, please tell me about him. Bless you all. Okay. So the second post here. I'm guessing this is referring to Maura. She is no longer with us. She is not in Franconia. The same thing happened to her friend. Could this be Brianna? This person also stated that she was alive for a while and then it was too risky to keep her alive. They implied that drugs were involved. I do not believe Maura was involved in drugs. I will check back an old post to see what else they told me. Okay. So that second post is from 2008. That does not appear. I don't know about that. The first one is weird. Some responses here. Topics was a treasure trove of unfiltered, basically unmoderated info, as was the MySpace page to a lesser degree. Concrete Guy was a very popular suspect in this case early on, and it was due to a lot of misdirection and lawyering up that things started to point elsewhere. I'd bet a great deal he's been on these boards spreading misinformation from the start. I am referring to Junior, to be clear. More responses. Absolutely, I'm finding things that amaze me. I actually found the old MySpace page on Bruce McKay and Lyco Kenny. That was pretty interesting because they were talking about Maura at the time as well. Someone else told me he follows these boards. The interesting thing is, even though he is mentioned early on, many locals were saying that Claude Moulton and a group of guys working at Reliance Auto and the Barge Inn were responsible for what happened to Maura. What's interesting is both Concrete Guy and Claude Moulton were both mutual friends with many of these same guys, even though I've never heard if Moulton and Concrete Guy themselves were close. Alright, let me repeat that again. Many locals were saying Claude Moulton and a group of guys working at Reliance Auto and the Barge Inn were responsible for what happened to Maura. Okay, so Reliance Auto near Amherst, this is a number that Maura Murray's phone called. And some people believe, so Reliance Auto, the owner, was this the same owner in this Iranian ring that included the landlord of the Phillips Street address? which is, and another building where Patrick Vassi's landlord also was supposedly an Iranian. So Patrick Vassi himself, was he the Albanian? And then all of these Iranian business owners, Reliance Auto, the Phillips Street address, who are this ring of Iranians, and did Maura Murray intersect them, and what is their connection to concrete guy Claude Moulton towing companies in the Haverhill area and auto shops? What is going on here? Also, supposedly the guy Maura Murray called at Domino's Pizzas after hours, who may or may not have been involved in some kind of drug angle, is also a mechanic who may or may not have connections to Reliance Auto or other auto shops. This is all unknown information. Is the reason she called that guy at Domino's, if the Saturn was involved in the Patrick Vassi hit and run, was she calling a mechanic for some kind of advice? That's why she called Domino's. And then this particular guy that she knows who worked at Domino's, did he also work at Reliance Auto, which is why she called, or someone using her phone called Reliance Auto on the Saturday? What's going on here? What's going on? An interesting post here. Were they partying across the street at the gypsy's house or what? I feel like Atwood was like squirrels, because basically that's what happened. Also, John connects to these creepo dirtbags. They're all obsessed, allegedly, with cement and trains and tanks and motorcycles. Lots of missing chicks around those parts. Plus, there's the Woodsville trafficking hub thing and the Vermont, New York, Canada, St. Regis Mohawk Reservation, also affiliated with John's family. And if you believe the New York Times, a gateway for the flow of illegal things, because it's Indian land, which means autonomous. Murray's family have family in and about that area too. This other poster, supposedly, who made these posts about this ring and concrete guy, died in a motorcycle accident after telling John, I'm assuming they're talking about John Smith here, he knew what was up, allegedly. Murray's lost their house, $4,000 lien put on it February 6th, 2004. Approximately the same amount Fred took out of 8 different ATMs on the way to the car shop. I'm sure the Westmans did see what happened, and maybe it's making the ring nervous. Also, supposedly this poster who was posting about this ring is Facebook friends with the young woman who is living with Claude Moulton. Some people believe that she looked exactly like Maura Murray. There's also an old post here. I don't know if I went over this on the Red Truck episode. I mean, that would have been quite some time ago. There's a post here. Have contact witness that saw a red truck, whether you could get information about Maura. Also, I heard from this post that the truck driver was looking for someone, that the person taught looking Maura, that he or she said Maura got into a red truck 2 minutes before the police and ambulances arrived in the area. Also, do you know whether Maura's older siblings are on topics? So supposedly someone is stating that they saw Maura get into a red truck. And they were stopping red trucks all night. I mean, we went over that before. Allegedly, the police were stopping red trucks all night. So is this a credible witness who actually saw Maura enter a red truck? Is this witness Butch Atwood or the Westmans, and then the police told them to change their story? Concrete Guy, of course, does have a red truck, but then again, so do other people. Here's another topic post. A local who grew up in that area and knew many... I don't know if this is the same person that is being referred to earlier, or if there's more than one. Supposedly more than one local kind of share this theory, so who knows. Knew many of that supposedly shady group, confirmed to me that the name of Red was someone named Dan who worked at Jetstar Auto. They also told me to look into the current chief of Littleton, New Hampshire, who they said was Concrete Guy's best bud. I do not know why they suggested this, but I have not had much of a chance to do this yet. According to her, it was not uncommon for some of these men like Moulton and those connected to Jetstar Auto Group to frequently try and pick up college female students and younger women. According to her, she believes Jeff Williams was possibly involved in helping to cover whatever happened to Maura. Apparently, he still hangs out at the local bars and is a very intimidating, huge guy. I'm assuming she means he is tall. I believe the poster from the old Topics forums, who fuels many of the Jetstar Auto and Claude Moulton rumors online, was this particular man who died in a vehicle accident sometime around 2013. He was the same age as Maura. Supposedly his father was connected to these local shady guys and did some shady stuff as well. I mean, is that the most mind-shocking post or what? So is the Jetstar Auto Group in the Haverhill area connected to Reliance Auto in the Amherst area? Now, we do have yet another connection here that might tie the whole thing together. Also, before we go on to the new connection, remember Alden Olson claiming that a mechanic inspected both the Corolla at the Hadley accident and the Saturn, and then Olson also claimed to be a victim of police intimidation after bringing that to light. I mean, this kind of reminds me of the Johnny Gosch case as well a little bit. If you haven't checked out the Mindshock episodes on Johnny Gosch, check those out. I mean, in that case, supposedly the police chief was implicated in the Franklin scandal and cover-up of child trafficking and just horrible, horrible crimes against children. And all of this was coming to light, and they actually gave stand-down orders on the investigation into the Johnny Gosch disappearance. Not only that, but the local paper that Johnny Gosch was a paperboy for was even told not to report in a positive light on the Gosch family or the case, as if trying to stonewall it on purpose. I mean, just shocking, shocking stuff. And supposedly a witness who saw Gosch being abducted into a vehicle was told by the police chief himself not to tell the story. So that information didn't come out until many, many years after. I mean, this is unbelievable. So to all the goofs and coincidence theorists and authority-worshipping cultists who think that law enforcement would never be involved in any kind of cover-up, I mean, there's so much precedent here. I mean, more and more is coming out all the time. Obviously, this wasn't known decades ago, so coincidence theorists had more of an excuse for their ignorance and pretending to live in a fairy tale world where police and politicians would never be involved in any kind of trafficking or crimes. Clearly, post-Epstein era, I mean, it's kind of hard to take coincidence theorists seriously in their denials of corruption these days because it's so blatant and everywhere. I mean, so widespread, and the more you look back, the more it looks like it's always been widespread. I mean, it's just really, really shocking stuff. But if these rumors around the ring are true and Williams is involved, see, Smith himself might not even be directly involved, but what's the protocol? Let's say you're a police officer and you suspect your chief of corruption. Like, what are you going to do? Especially if you suspect not only the chief, but possibly other officers and other higher-ups in the state police or elsewhere. Like, you'd first of all, you'd be afraid for your job, right? But how do you might also be afraid for your life. How do you go through proper channels? I mean, how many people would have the integrity and strength to actually follow through their convictions? It's a lot easier to just put your head down. So the majority of officers probably not involved at all. But coincidence theorists, of course, highly ignorant about how conspiracies and cover-ups are actually implemented and continued. It's not by complicity by all involved. It's simply too much trouble. It's easier not to look into it. And if you actually don't suspect them because you know them on a personal level, then it's even easier because you don't even take those allegations seriously and you never investigate them in the first place to find out if they're true or not because you consider some people beyond reproach. But, very, very shocking stuff. Let's move on to this yet another connection, which is this female friend, acquaintance, possible track team member that actually was on Kiln Road. And apparently this other poster also lived on Kiln Road that we just talked about, that fueled, the one that died in a motorcycle accident, that fueled these rumors. One more point to add fuel to the fire, which a lot of people forget, are the Conrads in relation to the case. So Tom Conrad was a guy murdered outside his mother's house, supposedly connected to the Maura Murray case, what happened to Maura Murray, possibly police corruption. And then not only that, supposedly Tom Conrad is not related to James Conrad, who was a cop who made comments on Facebook that he knew what happened to Maura Murray, and then all of a sudden he resigned in the middle of this controversy. He claimed to know she was murdered and where she was buried. So, are these people attempting to soft disclose what happened? They didn't exactly name names, but one of them is found dead, and nothing ever came of that, too. Like, never properly investigated, never solved. So to all the goofs out there who say it's just simple, cut and dry, why are all these people dying? And again, we don't know, the people die in motorcycle accidents. That might have been innocent regarding this poster, but if these rumors are true that this poster's father was actually involved in the ring and did shady stuff, and this guy also lived on Kiln Road with the connection to the Phillips Street address that Maura Murray was seen at and may have partied at frequently and may have even stayed at if she wasn't staying at her dorm. I mean, these are all unknowns. So Repulsive Wallaby again here has a great post. Here's a question that nobody seems to have an answer for. Who is the female friend or acquaintance that Maura supposedly knew on Kiln Road? Locals, maybe you can help. So apparently this information also comes from Rick Graves, that Maura knew a girl there on Kiln Road. And then also supposedly one of the track members or friends of the track members or roommate of the track members in the Phillips Street address, I went over this in the previous episode, was friends with Concrete Guy. I mean, what is going on here? I mean, these are so many connections, specifically not just from UMass, but the Phillips Street address and Haverhill. And we have the Kiln Road connection also connecting to a car auto ring, which may involve Jetstar Auto with Claude Moulton, and also Reliance Auto at Amherst. I mean, is this case close to being solved with this many connections? Repulsive Wallaby also posted this. Rick Graves was one of these people. Also, this other poster was the one who said it was a female friend, and he seems to have known a lot of what went on with shady drug dealers in that area. Crazy thing is, this guy lived on Kiln Road. Same person who said Claude Moulton, this other guy, Gary, Red, and other locals drugged her, killed her, then put her body in a wood chipper, and threw her remains off a train that went back and forth from Florida. Interestingly enough, some of these people do have connections to Florida. And this poster, of course, was killed in a motorcycle accident, supposedly shortly after telling John Smith a lot of information. Other people are also Repulsive Wallaby posted this. I still find Cecil Smith's death strange. I don't think Cecil had anything bad to do with Maura, but maybe he was about to spill some information he knew about. Then again, I don't know how the man felt with dementia. That's a good point, too, because if the local rumor that the New Hampshire State Police paid him a visit shortly before he's found dead, allegedly with 2 guns, and again, I don't know if anybody actually has the autopsy report or if it was... obviously, if there is some kind of ring covering themselves up, again, look at the Johnny Gosch case and how many people end up dead surrounding the Johnny Gosch case. It's crazy. It's crazy. So if there is a ring in New Hampshire, I mean, even Jilzane Maxwell has connections to New Hampshire. And so does Whitey Bulger, the brother of the UMass president, coincidentally. Also criminal connections. Also supposedly had a lot of people whacked and buried on New Hampshire property. I mean, all coincidental, I'm sure, but it's just weird. So obviously any kind of autopsy might not be able to be trusted regarding Cecil or other things. Is it possible Cecil actually didn't know about the the extent of the ring involvement, etc. And these two state police officers set him straight regarding what would happen if he did go public or whatever. I mean, who knows? Because if he didn't realize he was, or who knows, some people say, I mean, people have all sorts of theories. Again, I'm not claiming anything is true or untrue. Maybe all of it is coincidental. Maybe each and everything in this case and every single connection is all pure coincidence. I'm not saying it is or it isn't. A lot of the goofs out there that get triggered and comment, they're hallucinating that I'm alleging something is true or untrue. Obviously, I am not. I'm going over many different theories, many different possibilities, and just all of the available information. I am not claiming any of the information is true or untrue. It is kind of crazy, though, that this guy, this poster who ended up dying in a motorcycle accident, I mean, he named so many names here. The whole Mitch theory that I went over a few episodes ago. I mean, it's crazy, the amount of posts he made on topics. Here's another one of their posts, June 3rd, 2008. Well, Maura bought enough liquor to make mudslides for a number of people on her way up here from what I have been told. If Maura went to Chalet Schaffer, which burned down in 2004, or the Barge Inn to meet friends, I was told then something went very, very wrong and Maura was with the wrong people. I believe everyone who knows that is right. Well, the killer then did what I said he did so his daughter wouldn't get in trouble or whatever the problem was with these people and Maura. I refuse to say why in this forum, but that was the beginning of the end, and Maura knew it was, I am sure, and in the meantime, a couple of people were called to keep the problem from escalating. Maura was the problem at this point. Everyone knows who the bad man is if you live in Haverhill. I am told he wears a mob ring, and his name is Gary. I am told. The daughter, I am told, is a big coke dealer, the same as her mom and dad and her siblings, and some people up there are actually scared of these creeps. Well, after that phone call was made, then Gary's right-hand man, Claude, came up with a woman to assist getting rid of Maura. Problem for them, as Maura might have been seeing something that could have hurt the coke business, or maybe she witnessed a murder or some expletive, so Claude was ordered to get rid of her permanently. And I will say this is my opinion for the people who come in here and tell me off and are the murderers, in my opinion, or know them and are trying to protect them. If you add 1 and 1, you get about 39 people in Haverhill, okie dokie. Now Gary is trying to sell everything he has right now to get out of town, and the police, okay. So he made this post June 3rd, 2008. Then you have the mother who is used to living with nose candy in high gear with the straw glued in her nose, and everyone in town knows all about the deal here, but not many know which person is carrying the loads of drugs, narcotics, coke, etc. Just stop at Gary's, get some, or get a load of the expletive. Ask about 39 others in town, I am told, is sick of these fools, have given lots of messages back to them. Stop, enough for now, and like I say, this is an opinion of mine, okay, not a fact, okay. Other people are discussing arrest warrants here, and Mitchell, this poster again, claims his name is Bobby or alias Mitch. In 2004, many people wanted to get out of Haverhill District, which includes Woodsville, and yes, I am saying that the fire was set for insurance money but was not easy to prove, and I am not going to go into where, why, when with you, okay? I was just stating facts as I was told them, but it is one thing to know the truth, is another to prove it in the court of law, okay? I know way more, but this is the Murray Forum, so even though these people may be directly connected to her case, I'm going to stick to the truth that I can prove, okay? Another post, June 11th, 2008. Okay, well, I know Maura and her family vacationed up here and possibly met people in the Haverhill area over the years while climbing mountains with her dad, Fred, and family. Number 1, I was told Maura knew a girl on Lime Kiln Road. 2, I was told Maura knew someone in the Mountain Lakes also. 3, I was told there was a home in Mountain Lakes that either the Murray family own or have rented before. 4, I was told that Maura knew the same people near the MMM site, but I won't say who. 5, I wonder if Maura might have owed a favor or some money to these people for some reason. 6, I believe Maura got up to Haverhill and the people became very upset with Maura. And things got out of hand when she got up to the Haverhill area when she tried to fix what was wrong. 7, so Maura left Amherst to come directly to Haverhill to make a deal with someone to make things better so as not to keep these people mad at her. She was the type of person who was a caring and loving person who wanted to settle whatever was wrong and came to Haverhill because that what was asked of her. So that has to be why she was in the Haverhill area. 8, when Maura got up to the Haverhill area, she found herself in a mess because she either didn't have the amount of money to keep these people's mouths shut about something, maybe she was being blackmailed by these idiots, and the amount of money she was paying them was not enough anymore, and they wanted more and were mad when she didn't bring enough of what they were looking for, so the blackmailers went off on her, hurting her, and then she tried to run, but they sabotaged her with the rag in the tailpipe so she couldn't get away from them. 9, Maura knew when she left Amherst that she might not make it home and was in some type of trouble. And if she told her dad she knew that, she would be judged if anyone knew that she had made a mistake in her life. So she told no one in her family as she felt she could take care of the problem in her life but had no idea how bad these people were going to react to her not having what the crooks wanted when she got up in the Haverhill area as she tried to resolve the problem. 10, Maura then ran away, possibly hurt already from these bad people, and they were in hot pursuit and rammed her little car off the road after time until either the drugs that were slipped in her drink kicked in or they cornered her at the MMM site where they took her and left another woman of her stature to deal with the locals if there were any questions while they tried to get a flatbed there to remove the Saturn. But people started asking questions, so the crooks abandoned the Saturn and picked that other woman up, and they were forced into killing Maura because she knew too much or would have put them in jail if Maura had gone to the police, and if Maura was hurt, she might have been ready to do just that. Okay, wow. All I can say is wow, but again, let's not fall for any logical fallacies like false dichotomies. It doesn't necessarily have to be a situation where this poster 100% of what they said is true or 100% of what they said is false. The truth, he might have some details correct there and some details incorrect there. Either way, I think that's actually an accurate representation of local rumors, because local rumors have long persisted that someone was there who wasn't Maura to stand in for Maura. So true or false, that's what a lot of locals believed and talked about since 2004. So I believe that's an accurate representation of certain local sentiment, regardless of whether it's true or not. That's what a certain amount of people believed in that area. Yeah, I mean, this is really tough. This is really tough. Another post here, June 11th. Why would Maura be in Haverhill, New Hampshire? It wasn't for drugs. I know this because there are plenty of that stuff here in Massachusetts. She went to Haverhill, New Hampshire for a reason, but what is that reason? If we can figure out why she was there, we can crack this case maybe. Could it be a person she knew from up in that area was in trouble? Or was it a man she was being blackmailed by? Was she in debt to the killers? Was she on her way to meet someone in Haverhill that she knew? She wasn't upset from the accident that she just had with her dad's car. The family wasn't fighting. It just makes no sense. I was told tonight S.E., I'm guessing that should have been she, was killed by a father and son team. A name that came up was Richard when they asked someone about what happened to her. She has an uncle named Richard, and his son's name is Richard, but I believe they are from Massachusetts. How coincidental is that? So if Concrete Guy's first name is Richard, which I'm not saying it is or it isn't, and his father's name is Richard, which I'm not saying it is or it isn't, and Maura also has another uncle named Richard who has a son named Richard, I mean, Richard's a semi-popular name. I mean, it's not that outlandish, but, I mean, it's just kind of crazy. Okay, all you non-believers... Okay, I already read that comment before there. Okay. Another comment here. This might have been from a different person. It just states local yokel here. Littleton, New Hampshire. Ponder this. I have a strong feeling that her sister Kathleen and her boyfriend Tim know a lot more than I am saying. I was at a search at Mountain Lakes and they were acting very odd. I am not saying they had anything to do with her disappearance, but they know why she left. Just my opinion. So this is a local claiming to have been at a search. Okay, so here is yet another post from another individual from Albion, Maine. Greetings, I have just spent a good part of my weekend reading these posts. I found this page while I was June 16, 2008, by the way. I found this page while I was looking for unsolved murders in the River Valley. There are some pretty good ideas here and some really crazy crap. I need to get this off my chest. In August 1988, I was walking along 302 in Freiburg, Maine, along the New Hampshire border, when I was offered a ride by a man that seemed nice enough. I was 22 and naive. To make a long story short, I was beaten and sexually assaulted and left in the woods to rot. Luckily, we have an excellent police force, and the man was apprehended a week later. The man called himself the Interstate Man and kept notebooks describing kidnappings and murders all over the U.S. He claimed involvement in over 30 murders. The police also found quite a collection of knives. The man said that a force would come over him, and he wanted to be put away so he wouldn't be able to continue. He pled guilty to his charges, was sentenced to 20 years, but was out by July of 1999. What? In May of 2005, he was apprehended for driving a getaway vehicle of a bank robbery. He will be out in 2009. Someone has got to look into these notebooks and find out if he was really involved or if he was just a wannabe. I know this is about finding Maura. He was out of jail when she disappeared. Also, Jane Borowski was attacked 1 week before me, and he was working in New Hampshire at the time. His name was Lovey Lee Riddle Jr. Wow, what a messed up name. A.K.A. Louie, A.K.A. Howard, A.K.A. Bear, A.K.A. the Interstate Man. I have not written any info on this post that cannot be found in newspaper archive. Thanks for letting me vent, and my prayers go out to all the families trying to find answers in this all too often screwed up world. P.S. I have the newspaper clippings where he described many of events. And this poster is not lying. The Boston Globe, September 10th, 1988. Lovey Lee Riddle serial killer. Man jailed in Maine says he has killed 30. Police are trying to unravel the bizarre story of an itinerant dishwasher who has said he was involved in 30 killers across the continent over the last 2 decades. Officials yesterday were not sure of the name or age of the man who calls himself Lovey L. Riddle and the Interstate Man, so they don't even have his real name, and contends he was responsible for homicides from Texas to Toronto. His statements made to state police beginning August 24th were contained in affidavits police filed in advance of a 5th bail hearing yesterday. Man is being held in a felony sex charge stemming from an August 13 incident involving a woman in Freiburg. I have no way of telling whether he did any of the things he said he did, Janet Mills, district attorney for Oxford, Franklin, and Androscoggin counties, said yesterday. Everything is to be taken seriously, she added, until Riddle's statements can be confirmed or dismissed. At the very least, anyone who fakes such things or talks about such things has a problem that ought to be addressed, Mills said, because anyone who talks about such crimes poses a propensity for danger. Mills said she would not characterize Riddle's comments as a confession because he has not given a detailed description of each murder. Instead, she said he gave a rambling and fairly disconnected statement to State Police Detective Peter Herring after he returned to the Oxford County Jail following an earlier bail hearing. Patricia Mador, assistant Oxford County DA, said yesterday that Riddle told state police he was either present at or participated in or had knowledge of many murders. I mean, I don't see a lot of updates on this guy, though, so I don't know if they were never able to determine exactly how many crimes here. I mean, on offender.fdl.state.fl.us, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, they have a Louie Lee Riddle here, not Lovey Lee Riddle. I don't know if this is the same guy, but it does list his adjudication date as May 12th, 1989 for a sex offense in Oxford, Maine, where he was guilty, but that's it. That's the only charge listed there. So was he not involved in all of these other things? And he's also on the Maine sex offender registry, but as far as I mean, there's a couple other cases here that come up in association with his name. He also had domestic assault charges, bunch of other charges misconduct charges. But I don't know if they actually had him for any murders. So, was he not able to verify that, or was he lying about the murders and he's just guilty of all these assaults and sex assaults? He was also a person of interest in some missing children's cases. A lot of messed up people out there. But back to these posts regarding the Maura Murray case. Another poster from St. Paul, Minnesota, June 17, 2008. I saw locals come and go with very good first-hand information on MMM. They were there that night to elaborate on additional policemen, a seemingly lurking red truck, one being able to add that she stopped her car at the scene and witnessed 2 more cars with drivers. They stopped and helped to look for Maura too. I live so wow, is that the first time we've heard about that? So apparently 2 more vehicles actually stopped and participated in the search for Maura. I live too far away to blame anybody, and I wouldn't anyway, but why did it take 2 days to interview neighbors? And why did they say it was Fred driving? Why did the first bolo have Maura as shorter, etc.? How did they have her info anyhow, for that matter? The BOL was at noonish Tuesday before calling Fred and Billy, and by the time Sharon got there, why oh why were they told something other than the girl with the rag in her tailpipe seemed to be drinking, not drinking, and we don't know if she was hurt, but we saw the crack in the windshield, we put out a BOL, and we did look for her to an extent the night of the crash. Here's what else we heard. Why did they do that? Because in my mind, no matter what was driving Maura seemingly into much-needed time away, WTF, and it was cold that night, as seen in CS report. He noted various things that spell real trouble for a motorist who has just spun out and nowhere to be found. Did police lie because they'd be up expletive crick for not helping an intoxicated young female more, if that was the case? And then there's that rag. Why? How could anybody stuff one in there anyhow? It was rear end into the snowbank, supposedly. And why did the other witnesses say the car backed up parallel to the road? That's what he could see from his angle. Is CS known for forgetting things when he writes in his log days after an accident of sorts occurs? To me, he should not have played clueless to that Maura was driving the car. Another point, too, that I've gone over before, if it was a man driving in the vehicle and he was a man smoking a cigarette or whatever, locals like the Westmans, they might not necessarily have rushed out to help. But if it was a young woman in need, perhaps the locals would have been more apt to assist. Who knows? Another post here from someone in Canterbury, New Hampshire, responding to a post about the Vassy and Saturn connection, June 19, 2008. You've gone over some real good points, made a couple years back, added food for thought. Dang, and taking the car off campus really makes sense. Didn't the windshield crack on the inner glass, though? Can you repeat what was said at the search without giving yourself away? All I can relate to about Kathleen and Tim bickering is that they likely had to start off their marriage on a sad note that may or may not be consuming them. Kathleen and Maura was so close, and my sister and I are too, but she has causes such heartache. For Kathleen to have to go from whatever was progressing to having no Maura at all must be totally maddening. The response here, I'm guessing this is the person who overheard Kathleen and Tim Carpenter speaking. Her words were, quote, "Now that my sister's not here, my dad will have to spend time with me for once instead of her. I know this stuff because I wrote it down back then. I found it harsh," and I'm guessing that's end quote. "I know this stuff because I wrote it down back then. I found it harsh and suspicious. Just then a small man came over who I later found out was her husband Tim, grabbed her arm and basically told her, 'You don't speak to anyone, remember what I said.' He was very controlling and domineering to the point where she turned and looked troubled and lost. I fear for her in that relationship." Wow. I mean, this is wild stuff here. So I'll go over one more thread here. Again, also from Repulsive Wallaby, leading the charge here to all of these connections. The strange connections to Lime Kiln Road. The suicide attempt call on Lime Kiln Road. Yet another coincidence from that night. And I didn't even mention the DEA activity, the U.S. Marshal activity in this small little hamlet of Haverhill, New Hampshire. I mean, the coincidence stack is so stratospheric at this point. I mean, I don't know how people can write it all off as coincidence. Maybe it is all coincidence, but if so, it's the largest coincidence stack in the history of true crime. Cecil Smith and John Monahan's departure from the Saturn scene to Lime Kiln Road. Maura's female friend on Lime Kiln Road, and the Topics poster who claims to know what happened to Maura, who also lived on Lime Kiln Road. Most people are familiar with Cecil Smith leaving the scene of the Saturn to go respond to an apparent suicide attempt, not to mention there were also a bunch of other suicide attempt calls that night. Were those possibly deflecting from one of the real ones? You know what would be a really big mind shock? Was one of the suicide calls for Maura? Whether true or untrue, if they were staging her suicide, I mean, that's crazy. However, Lime Kiln Road pops up in this case a few other times. In an old Topics post, a poster has a list of things he claims to have known about Maura. You can find these posts on this sub. The number one post on this list stated that Maura had a friend, a girl, who lived on Lime Kiln Road. Number 2 states that Maura also had a friend who lived in Mountain Lakes. Keep in mind the person writing that post also lived on Lime Kiln Road. He had a son who was the same age as Maura, who a few have speculated was the friend who lives in Haverhill. However, this poster specifically refers to the friend as a girl. Who is this female friend? Is he referring to the friend as a girl to kind of throw suspicion off his own son, if that was the case? And trying to reveal information at the same time? Again, I mean, why are we pretending all people have to be rational? Maybe they just thought that was the best way to do it. But regardless, this poster apparently died Sunday, June 23rd as a result of a motorcycle accident. Did the poster possibly know even more than they were letting on? Cecil Smith also leaves the Saturn scene to respond to a suicide call on Lime Kiln Road. What if something happened to Maura on Lime Kiln Road by accident or intentional, and someone called it in as a suicide call to cover it up? Wow, is that the best theory thus far, keeping in mind all of the connections between Amherst and Haverhill, New Hampshire? And if they have connections in law enforcement, possibly even at UMass, possibly even at Hadley PD, if there's some high-ranking individuals, or let's say the children of high-ranking, let's say there's no official trafficking ring, but someone's child, the child of a high-ranking official, is involved in this and they want to keep it hush-hush, would they call in favors? Obviously not necessarily revealing the truth of what their child was involved in, but just asking a favor to stand down on this case because there's, let's say, sensitive information concerning other cases and other undercover agents. They could make it look innocent enough, like they're protecting other investigations. I'm sure all the clueless coincidence theorists would never consider that. So Cecil Smith also leaves the Saturn scene to respond to a suicide call on Lime Kiln Road. What if something happened to Maura on Lime Kiln Road by accident or intentional and someone called it in as a suicide to cover it up? Did something go down on Lime Kiln Road? Below is a post from another interesting article. The next statement from John floored me. Here's what he claims. Is this John Smith? I don't know. I don't know who this John is that they're talking about. This is the statement here. I left about an hour later, I think 9:30. I was over in Pike at Beckett School helping Haverhill talk a suicide. Oh, is this John Monahan? Is this Cecil Smith talking about John Monahan? About an hour later, I think it was 9:30, I was over in Pike at Beckett School helping Haverhill talk a suicide kid down off the power lines. So that was my night. Wait a minute, do we know for a fact that Cecil Smith had been dispatched to this call, so why is John sticking around when it's not his jurisdiction? This was Cecil's call, and he doesn't need John's help. Why did he claim to have helped with the suicidal team? John claimed that after he was at French Pond, he went to 116. That intersection intercedes with Lime Kiln Road, the same road where that teen tried to commit suicide. What was John doing there? So, why is there someone trying to commit suicide also on Lime Kiln Road? And is this particular suicidal kid unrelated to all the other Lime Kiln Road issues that happened that night, including Maura Murray and the people she knew on that road? Wow, I mean, you can't make this stuff up, people. You can't make this stuff up. Apparently, I mentioned this guy before too. Christopher Flynn also went missing in Haverhill. So, Journal Opinion, June 9th, 2010. Search is on for missing man in Haverhill. North Haverhill, the Haverhill Police Department, and the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department are looking for a Massachusetts man after his van was found stuck on an abandoned road in North Haverhill on June 2nd. The man, Christopher Flynn, 40, of Westminster, Massachusetts, was reported missing by concerned family members on June 2nd, the same day the van was found. Sinclair Road, off of Route 116, also known as Benton Road. A Haverhill police spokesperson said there is nothing suspicious about the incident and it is being treated as a missing persons case. According to a news release from the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department issued on June 6th, a white 2000 Chevrolet electrician's van, which is owned by Flynn, was recovered from a remote wooded area in Haverhill after it had become stuck while traveling down an abandoned road. Sinclair Road is near Black Mountain State Forest. Police and fish and game personnel do not know why Flynn was in Haverhill or whether he may have been en route to Vermont. Upon locating the van, fish and game personnel with assistance from the New England Canine Search and Rescue Team, Upper Valley Wilderness Response Team, and the Pemigewasset Valley Search and Rescue Team conducted a search according to the news release. Since the discovery of the vehicle, fish and game personnel have been searching for Flynn, and Haverhill police have been canvassing the area around Lime Kiln Road. I mean, what is it about this road, and what is it about missing people and abandoned vehicles in that area? I mean, it's just kind of weird. Kind of weird. Also, again, I mentioned this before, there was a vodka bottle found on Lime Kiln Road, but I believe it was never picked up. And this was in the searches for Maura. I don't know how close to the time around her disappearance, but again, it's a vodka bottle. I mean, there's vodka bottles all over the place, so, I mean, I wouldn't put that much. I mean, maybe it was somehow connected, but it's very possible it wasn't. I would say that's the least suspicious thing about all of it. So, I mean, that's pretty much where we leave it. We have all this information, we have all these early rumors, and again, I always reiterate, a lot of cold cases that end up getting solved, it turns out that the early rumors were true, or at least partially true. Not every case, obviously, but a certain percentage of cases, the early rumors are true because people hear stuff. And if there is a ring involved, obviously, they would be talking, either drunken or otherwise. I mean, this is crazy stuff, but if the connections are there, if Maura knows this girl on Lime Kiln Road, who's connected to some of these locals, if there's an auto mechanic and some kind of auto ring connecting Reliance Auto to Jetstar Auto, I mean, we have not one but two direct connections to the Haverhill area. What does everybody make of that? I mean, that's where we're leaving it here. I think this has been the most mind-shocking episode yet. We've attempted to connect as many dots as possible. And, yeah, I mean, I don't know what more there is. Unless more information is released, there's really not much more to go on here. One of the people who contacted Maura last apparently has a connection to Lime Kiln Road. And also another one had a connection to the Londonderry area where the Londonderry ping was. So we have direct connections from the Phillip Street address where the other party might have taken place, where Maura could have been theoretically at on the Saturday. So we have several direct connections to all of this. So if all of it can be connected, and again, it still doesn't really explain the DEA U.S. Marshal activity. Was there some kind of undercover agent that got mixed up in this whole thing? Yeah, I mean, it seems like that would have to be the case to really check every single box in this case for it not to be coincidental. But like I said, I mean, this is, as of right now, there's only going to be a couple more episodes. There's not that much stuff to go over. We've gotten to the point where we've gone basically over all of the information available in the Maura Murray case on the Mindshock podcast. As always, if you find the podcast interesting and informative, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications, like and share the podcast, keep up awareness in unsolved missing persons cases, cold cases, and wrongful convictions. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcast requests. You can also be a guest in the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.